The concert hall was huge and full of light. Every seat was taken. People dressed in fine clothes whispered to each other, waiting for the great pianist Victor Lang to come out. He was famous all over the world, known for his perfect skill and cold heart. The audience was excited to see him perform, but they didn't know that someone special was sitting quietly in the back row. Her name was Emma, a small blind girl no older than 13. She held her white cane in one hand and her mother's arm in the other. Her eyes, though closed, seemed peaceful. She couldn't see the shining stage or the golden lights, but she could feel the energy around her. She loved music deeply. It was her world, her comfort, her dream. Her mother whispered softly, "We're here, sweetheart. You can sit down now." Emma smiled. "I can hear the piano from here, Mama," she said in a soft voice. Her mother brushed her hair gently and nodded, though Emma couldn't see it. She looked around nervously. People were staring, some curious, others confused about why a blind girl was at a piano masterclass. Victor Lang entered the stage to loud applause. He gave a proud smile and sat at the grand piano. "Today," he said, "I will teach what true art sounds like." His voice was confident, maybe too confident. The first few notes filled the hall, and Emma felt every vibration in her chest. She imagined colors and shapes dancing in her mind. That was how she saw the world, through sound, not sight. Her mother whispered, "Do you like it?" Emma nodded. "It's beautiful, but something feels cold," she said. "His music has no heart." Her mother was surprised. "What do you mean?" Emma tilted her head and said, "He plays perfectly. But he doesn't love what he's playing. I can feel it." After the performance, Victor began his lesson for a few selected students. He invited them to the stage to play short pieces so he could critique them. His words were sharp, his tone serious. He told one student, "You play like a machine," and to another, "You have no emotion." Everyone laughed politely. Even when it hurt the young student's feelings, Emma listened to everything carefully. She was fascinated by the music, but also by how people reacted. She could sense the pride in Victor's voice and the fear in the students. She wanted to learn, not to show off, but to understand. To her, the piano wasn't about being perfect. It was about speaking through sound. When the class took a short break, the event organizer noticed Emma and her mother sitting quietly. He approached them with a warm smile. "Hello there," he said kindly. "I hope you're enjoying the performance." Emma's mother smiled back. "Yes, my daughter loves the piano," she replied. The man looked surprised. "Your daughter?" He glanced at Emma's closed eyes. She listened so closely. Emma smiled shyly. "I love the piano, sir. I've never played one myself, but I know how it feels just by listening." The man chuckled. "Would you like to touch one? When the master class ends, I can ask the staff." Emma's face lit up. "Really?" When Victor overheard them, he looked up with a curious expression. "What's going on?" The organizer said cheerfully, "This young girl is blind, but she loves the piano. I thought she might want to touch it after class." Victor laughed softly. "Touch it? My dear, this isn't a toy for children to touch, especially not those who can't even see it." The organizer froze. Unsure how to respond, the room went quiet for a moment. Emma's mother frowned and said softly, "She only wanted to feel the keys, not to play." Victor shrugged. "Music isn't about feeling keys. It's about reading notes, about technique, and about understanding art." He turned away, clearly not interested. Emma's small hand tightened around her cane. Her mother whispered, "It's okay, honey. Maybe we'll just listen." But Emma's heart was heavy. She didn't feel angry, she felt sad. Sad that someone who could play such beautiful music didn't understand what it truly meant. When Victor began playing again, Emma leaned forward slightly. Her lips moved as she whispered the notes softly. Remembering the sound of each key, she imagined her father's old songs, the ones he used to play before his sight faded completely. He had told her once, "Music doesn't need eyes, only heart." Emma didn't know it yet, but this night would change everything. This was the night she would step toward the piano for the very first time. The night the audience would see what true music really was. For now, she just sat quietly, listening to Victor's music echo through the hall, her heart already composing something far greater. The invitation was simple. Come and listen to the great pianist play. But what Emma really received was something deeper, a silent call to prove that even in darkness, a soul could shine brighter than all the stage lights in the world. When the break ended, Victor Lang returned to the stage with the same proud smile. The audience clapped politely, and the students stood ready for their turn to perform. The air inside the concert hall felt heavy, a mix of nervous energy and quiet admiration. But in the very last row, Emma sat still, her small hands folded in her lap. Her mother whispered, "Would you like to leave, sweetheart?" Emma shook her head gently. "No, Mama, I want to listen a little longer." The organizer, who had felt bad about Victor's dismissive tone earlier, glanced back at Emma and sighed. He couldn't shake the image of the girl's peaceful smile, and the way she seemed to understand the music better than anyone. When Victor began speaking again, his words carried both pride and a hint of arrogance. "Music," he said, "is not a game. It is not emotion alone, it is control, precision, and mastery." He pointed toward a nervous young boy standing beside the piano. "Play," he ordered. The boy hesitated, pressed a few keys, and played a simple melody. Victor frowned and stopped him halfway. "You're rushing, your fingers are too stiff. Feel the rhythm, but don't drown in it." The boy nodded quickly. His face red, the audience chuckled softly. They weren't laughing at the boy. They were laughing because Victor always found a way to make someone feel small. Emma listened carefully. She tilted her head slightly, counting the rhythm in her mind. Every note told her something different. Not about mistakes, but about feelings. She heard fear in the boy's music, pride in Victor's, and silence in her own heart. Suddenly a voice broke the moment. "Sir?" It was the organizer again, his tone gentle but firm. "This young girl here, she told me she dreams of playing even though she's never had the chance. Would it be all right if she touched the piano just for a moment?" Victor raised an eyebrow, clearly annoyed. "You again?" he said with a smirk. "We already discussed this, didn't we?" But before he could continue, murmurs rose from the crowd. Someone whispered, "Let her try." Another voice followed. "Yes, what harm could it do?" Victor's pride was challenged. He folded his arms and looked directly at Emma. "You wish to play my piano?" he asked coldly. Emma froze for a moment, but then nodded softly. "If it's allowed," she said in her quiet voice. Her mother squeezed her hand. "You don't have to." "Honey," but Emma whispered, "I want to." Victor laughed dryly. "You understand that the piano isn't just a piece of wood and strings, right? It's a language, and you can't learn a language without seeing its words." The audience chuckled again, but this time it didn't sound kind. Emma stood up slowly, holding her cane. The hall fell silent as she made her way toward the stage. Her mother followed behind, ready to catch her if she stumbled. The sound of her cane tapping on the floor echoed softly. People stopped whispering. There was something powerful in her calm steps when she reached the stage. Victor looked down at her, still unconvinced. "All right then," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Show us how a blind girl plays the piano." Emma smiled faintly. "I can't see your piano, sir, but I can hear it breathe." Her words made a few people murmur in surprise. She placed her fingers gently on the keys, tracing their surface as if greeting an old friend. Victor leaned on the piano and said, "Find middle C if you can." Emma took a deep breath, tilted her head, and pressed a key. It rang true. Middle C. The audience gasped quietly. Victor blinked in surprise but stayed silent. Then Emma whispered, "I learned from my father's memory," and she began to play. Her fingers moved slowly at first, searching for comfort. Each note was cautious but full of emotion. Soon the hesitation faded, replaced by a calm confidence. The melody she created wasn't one anyone recognized. It wasn't copied from a sheet, and it came from her heart. People in the audience leaned forward, captivated. The laughter that had filled the room earlier had disappeared completely. Even Victor, for the first time, didn't know what to say. He watched as the little girl, who couldn't see the piano, played it as if she had known it all her life. Her song spoke of loss and warmth, of love that never left even in darkness. Her mother stood frozen beside the stage, tears forming in her eyes. She had never heard her daughter play before, never seen her so peaceful. When the last note echoed and faded, silence filled the hall. It was not the silence of boredom. It was the silence of awe. Victor's mouth opened slightly, his usual words of critique gone. Emma sat quietly, her hands resting on the keys. She smiled and whispered, "Did I do okay?" No one answered right away, because no one wanted to break the moment. Then a single clap came from somewhere in the crowd, followed by another and then another, until the whole room was standing, clapping for the blind girl who had shown them the soul of music. Victor looked down, ashamed yet amazed. and whispered softly to himself, "She found what I lost." And from that moment, the story of Emma, the blind girl who played with her heart, began to spread far beyond that golden hall. The sound of applause still echoed in the concert hall, but Emma didn't fully understand what she had done. She sat on the piano bench, hands resting gently on the keys, her lips curved in a shy smile. Her mother ran up to her, tears in her eyes. "You were perfect." "I love," she whispered. Emma smiled. "Did I play it right, Mama?" Her mother nodded, voice trembling. "You didn't just play it right. You made everyone listen." But not everyone could admit what they felt. Victor Lang stood frozen beside the piano, his pride trembling inside him. He had mocked her only minutes ago. Now the same girl had stolen every bit of attention from him. The hall that once waited for his approval now looked only at her. He cleared his throat and tried to regain control. "That was surprising," he said stiffly. "But music isn't about tricks. It's about understanding theory, rhythm, and reading notes." The audience's applause faded. The atmosphere shifted from wonder to tension. A few people glanced at Victor. Unsure if he was serious, one man whispered. "He's jealous," another said. "He can't admit she's better." Emma didn't hear them. She only turned her face toward Victor and smiled. "You're right, sir," she said kindly. "I don't know the rules, I only play what I feel." Her calm answer caught Victor off guard. He frowned slightly. "Feeling is not enough," he said sharply. "Music without structure is noise." Emma tilted her head. "But isn't noise just music that hasn't been understood yet?" The crowd murmured, her innocence cutting through his pride like light through glass. Victor forced a smile and turned toward the audience. "Perhaps we can have her play something specific," he said. "Let's see if she can repeat what I play." He sat beside her and began to perform a complicated melody. Fast, sharp, full of technical brilliance, the notes bounced off the walls like sparks. Every few seconds he glanced at Emma, expecting her to flinch or get lost, but when he finished, Emma took a breath and placed her fingers on the keys. She didn't copy him perfectly. Instead, she slowed it down, softened the sharp edges, and filled the pauses with warmth. Her version wasn't flawless, and it was emotional. Real, every note felt like it had meaning. Victor stared, his expression unreadable. She hadn't just repeated his song, she had transformed it, turning his proud performance into something alive, something human. When she ended, silence fell again. Victor's heart pounded, not from anger but from shock. He remembered the first time he played as a child, how he loved the sound before he learned the rules. But years of fame and judgment had buried that feeling. Emma turned to him and said softly, "It sounded sad, sir, so I tried to make it smile a little." The audience burst into quiet laughter, not mocking, but touched. Even those who didn't understand music could feel the difference. Victor opened his mouth but couldn't speak. His throat felt tight. He wanted to be angry, but he couldn't. He looked at her small hands, at how gently she treated the piano, and realized she respected it more than he ever had. Then someone in the crowd called out, "Play together!" The suggestion spread quickly. Yes, let them play together. Dozens of voices echoed. Victor hesitated, his pride and curiosity fighting each other. Finally, he sighed. "Fine," he said. "Let's play." Emma nodded eagerly. "Okay," she whispered. He began a soft melody, one he hadn't played in years. It was his mother's favorite lullaby, a song he'd promised never to play publicly. As he played the first few notes, he noticed something strange. Emma joined him without missing a beat. She followed not by sight but by emotion, matching his rhythm as if she could hear his heart instead of his hands. Their music flowed together. His precision and her passion, the result was breathtaking. The audience leaned forward, eyes glistening. The two of them seemed connected through sound, opposites that made harmony. When the final note faded, the crowd exploded with applause louder than before. Victor sat still, staring at his hands for the first time in years. He felt something break inside, the wall between skill and soul. Emma smiled and whispered, "Thank you for sharing your song." "Sir," Victor looked at her, voice quiet. "How did you know it was a lullaby?" Emma tilted her head. "Because it felt like a memory," she said. "Like someone missing home." He blinked, stunned. The little girl had just read his soul through sound when the crowd finally stood up, clapping endlessly. Victor didn't bow this time. He stood beside Emma, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. For the first time that night, he smiled, not as a teacher but as a student. As they walked off the stage, Emma whispered to her mother, "I think he heard the music for the first time." And though Victor Lang didn't reply, his heart whispered back the same truth. The blind girl had just opened his eyes. The world outside the concert hall changed overnight. Videos of Emma's performance spread like wildfire across social media. People couldn't believe what they saw, a blind girl playing with such grace, such emotion, that even the great Victor Lang was left speechless. News headlines read, "The blind prodigy who silenced a maestro and when emotion beat perfection." But Emma didn't know she had become famous. Her mother didn't tell her right away. Instead, she let Emma wake up in peace the next morning. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, warming her face. Did it really happen, Mama?" Emma asked, rubbing her eyes. "Did I really play in front of everyone?" Her mother smiled softly. "You did, sweetheart. And you played beautifully," Emma smiled. But her tone was calm, almost humble. "It wasn't perfect, though," she said. "I missed some notes." Her mother shook her head and laughed quietly. "You didn't miss anything, my love. You gave them something they didn't even know they were missing, and heart." Meanwhile, across town, Victor Lang sat in his luxurious apartment. Unable to sleep, the sound of Emma's melody haunted him. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that soft, warm tone, the same one that made his chest tighten. He sat by his grand piano, fingers resting on the keys. But no matter what he played, it all sounded empty. He poured himself a cup of coffee and muttered, "A child. A blind child made me feel again." He had spent years teaching, judging, performing for crowds that praised him, but it had all turned to routine. He played for perfection, never for feeling. Now he realized how hollow it had become. His assistant entered the room holding a tablet. "Sir, the video's everywhere," she said. "They're calling her the girl who heard music. You have millions of views." Victor rubbed his temples. "Wonderful. Now they think I'm the villain." The assistant hesitated. "Actually, people are saying you looked moved at the end." Victor turned away, not sure how to respond. Deep inside, something stirred, a feeling he hadn't known since childhood. He remembered his own teacher's words. "Don't just play the notes, Victor. Feel them." He had forgotten that lesson long ago, that afternoon, as Emma and her mother sat in their small living room. There was a knock on the door. Her mother opened it, and there stood Victor Lang himself, wearing a simple gray coat instead of his usual elegant suit. For a moment she froze, unsure if she should let him in. Emma turned her head toward the door, sensing the familiar voice. "Mr. Lang?" she asked softly. Victor smiled faintly. "You have a good memory," he said. "May I come in?" Her mother nodded carefully, still cautious. "Of course, sir. Please sit." Victor stepped inside. Looking around the modest apartment, it was warm, filled with small musical instruments and the faint scent of jasmine tea. He saw a small keyboard near the window. Its keys slightly worn, Emma sat cross-legged on the floor, her white cane beside her. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked, her voice nervous. Victor shook his head quickly. "No, Emma, you did something right. Something I had forgotten how to do." She tilted her head curiously. "You forgot how to play?" Victor gave a small laugh. "Not exactly. I forgot why to play." He paused for a long moment, then said, "You reminded me that music isn't a competition. It's a conversation." Her mother smiled quietly from the side. Victor looked at Emma and continued, "I was cruel to you that night. I mocked you in front of everyone, and yet you gave me kindness. That's something no amount of fame can teach." Emma smiled softly. "My father used to say, when someone closes your eyes with hate, open your heart wider." Her words hit Victor deeply. He looked down, hiding his emotion. "Your father was a wise man," Emma nodded. "He taught me to listen, not just to sound, but to silence, too." Victor took a deep breath and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small envelope. "There's a scholarship program I've started," he said, "for children with disabilities who want to learn music. I'd like you to be the first student, and maybe one day." "The teacher?" Emma's mouth opened slightly. "Me? A teacher?" He smiled. "You've already taught me more than any master ever did." Tears filled her mother's eyes. "Mr. Lang, this means everything to her." Victor stood, buttoning his coat. "No," he said quietly. "It means everything to me." As he left the apartment, Emma called after him, "Mr. Lang." He turned. "Yes?" She said, "Can I ask one thing?" He nodded. "Of course, next time you play," she said softly. Don't play for the audience, play for the person you miss. Victor froze for a moment, then smiled faintly. I already am, he whispered. That night when he sat at his piano again, he didn't play to impress. He closed his eyes, imagined his mother, humming softly in the kitchen, and began to play her lullaby. For the first time in years, the music wasn't perfect, but it was alive, and somewhere across town, Emma heard the faint echo on the radio, smiled, and whispered. He finally found the right note. The weeks that followed felt like a dream Emma never wanted to wake up from. Letters, flowers, and gifts started arriving from people she didn't even know. Some called her the miracle pianist. Others wrote that her story gave them courage to believe again. But to Emma, all of it was just noise compared to the quiet peace she found each morning when she sat by her little keyboard, fingers dancing gently across the worn keys. Her mother, however, could see the change everywhere. Their once small apartment was filled with reporters' requests, invitations from TV shows, and endless phone calls from music schools around the world. They all want to meet you, her mother said one evening. Sorting through a pile of letters, Emma smiled softly. That's nice, Mama, but I just want to play across the city. Victor Lang's life had changed too for years. He was known as the perfectionist, the man who measured worth by how flawlessly someone hit a note. But now, people saw him differently. In every interview he spoke of Emma, he said, a blind girl reminded me what music truly means. And the world listened. His upcoming concert was being called The Night of Heart, dedicated to children who played music despite disabilities. When the invitation reached Emma, she was sitting in her small garden. Listening to birds, her mother read the letter aloud. Victor Lang requests your presence as a co-performer at his charity concert. Emma's mouth opened slightly. He wants to play with me? Her mother smiled. Yes, sweetheart, together on the same stage. Emma hesitated for a moment. Do you think people will laugh again, Mama? Her mother knelt beside her, holding her hands gently. Not this time, my love, this time they'll listen. The night of the concert arrived faster than expected. The hall was bigger than before, golden lights glowing like stars above the audience. Victor waited backstage, pacing nervously. He had performed in front of kings and presidents, yet tonight his hands trembled like a beginner's. He turned when he heard the sound of soft footsteps. Emma walked in, wearing a white dress with tiny silver threads that shimmered under the light. Good evening, Mr. Lang, she said with a polite smile. Victor smiled back. Please call me Victor, he said gently. You ready to make history? Emma giggled. No, sir, I'm just ready to make music. The audience clapped as the two walked onto the stage. Victor guided her to the piano, whispering, You start, I'll follow. She nodded, placed her hands on the keys, and for a moment silence filled the room. Then she began to play, soft, delicate notes that seemed to float in the air like feathers. The melody was pure emotion, no sheet, no plan, just feeling. Victor joined her, blending his music into hers. Their notes danced together, her warmth and his strength, her innocence and his wisdom. It wasn't a competition. It was a conversation between two souls. As they played, the audience sat frozen, even breathing felt too loud. The music rose and fell like a story. The story of a blind girl who taught a master to see again, and a master who gave her wings to fly. When the final note faded, there was a pause, a sacred silence. Then the hall erupted in applause. Louder than anything Victor had ever heard, people stood, cheering, crying, shouting their names. Victor turned to Emma, his eyes wet with tears. You've changed my world. Emma, he whispered. She smiled. No, Victor, you just finally started hearing yours. After the concert, a reporter rushed backstage. Mr. Lang, how does it feel to be outshined by your student? Victor laughed softly. She didn't outshine me, he said. She lit the darkness we both had. Emma's mother hugged her tightly, crying quietly. You did it, sweetheart, she whispered. Emma smiled. No, Mama, we did. Later that night, Victor sat alone on the empty stage, the lights dimmed. He looked at the piano and whispered, Thank you, not to the instrument, but to the girl who taught him to listen again. Meanwhile, Emma, back in her little room, ran her fingers along her small keyboard, humming the same song they played together. I hope he's still playing, she whispered. And somewhere far away, Victor's grand piano echoed the same melody, soft and full of feeling for the first time. Their music reached beyond distance, tied together not by sight or fame, but by the simple truth that the heart always finds a way to speak. That night, two souls, one blind, one prideful, proved that music isn't seen or heard. It's felt, and sometimes when the world falls silent, that's when the most beautiful sound begins. Months passed after the charity concert, yet people still talked about it everywhere. The performance between Victor Lang and the blind girl Emma had become more than just music. It had become a story of redemption and hope. Videos of the concert played on every television, and newspapers printed her picture beside Victor's, captioned, "The girl who made the world listen." But fame didn't change Emma. She still lived a simple life with her mother in their small apartment. Every morning she practiced quietly by the window, fingers gliding over the same old keyboard. To her, music was not about cameras or applause. It was still about emotion, still about the unseen colors inside every sound. One morning, her mother received a call from an international music foundation. The voice on the other end was cheerful. "We would like to sponsor Emma to study music abroad at the Royal Academy in London." Her mother gasped. That's unbelievable, thank you." When she told Emma, the girl went silent for a long moment. "London?" she whispered. "That's very far." Her mother nodded. "It is, sweetheart, but it's a chance for you to learn from the best, to become who you were meant to be." Emma bit her lip. "But what about Mr. Lang?" Her mother smiled. "He'll be proud, honey. He'll want you to go." And he was when Victor received the news. He stood quietly by the window of his studio, watching the morning sun reflect on his piano. "London," he whispered. "The world deserves to hear her." He called Emma's mother personally. "Tell her," he said softly. "Music has no borders. She must go. She's ready." The weeks leading up to her departure were a blur. Reporters gathered again, asking questions, taking photos. But Emma stayed humble. She always said, "I'm not special. I'm just listening to what the music wants to say." The night before she left, Victor visited her one last time. He brought her a small box wrapped in silver paper. "Before you go," he said, "I want you to have this." Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a tiny golden metronome, engraved with the words "Feel, not count." She smiled softly, running her fingers over the carving. "It's beautiful," she said. Victor nodded. "Whenever you feel nervous, just remember, and music doesn't need eyes, only heart." Emma looked up. "I'll miss you, Mr. Lang," she whispered. He smiled, trying to hide the emotion in his voice. "And I'll miss my best student," he said. "But one day I'll come to London, and you'll be the one teaching me." The next morning, the airport was crowded with cameras. Reporters shouted questions as Emma and her mother made their way toward the gate. "Emma, how does it feel to be leaving home? What will you play first in London?" Emma stopped for a second, smiled toward the sound of their voices, and said gently, "Home isn't a place, it's a sound you carry inside." When she boarded the plane, Victor stood near the window of the terminal. Watching quietly, he didn't wave or call out, but his lips moved in silence. "Play the world, little one." Life in London was both strange and beautiful. The city was louder, the streets busier, but the music halls were full of life. Emma made friends with students from all over the world. Some doubted her at first, whispering, "How can a blind girl read sheet music?" But the first time she played, every whisper vanished. Her professors were stunned. "She doesn't play," one said softly. "She paints." Her ability to feel emotion in sound amazed everyone. Each performance brought tears to the audience, because it wasn't just skill, it was soul back home. Victor watched every recording he could find. Every time Emma played, he could hear a piece of himself in her melodies. He smiled proudly, whispering, "She found her wings." Months later, Emma received a letter from him. It said, "Dear Emma, when I first met you, I thought I was teaching you music. Now I realize you were teaching me life. Keep playing, because every note you touch reminds me that even blindness can lead the world to light." Emma pressed the letter against her chest, her eyes wet. "He still listens," she whispered. At her final recital of the year, the Grand Hall in London was filled to the brim. The audience waited quietly. Then, as Emma walked toward the piano, the lights dimmed. She sat down, took a deep breath, and began to play something new, a song she had written herself, titled, "For the One Who Saw Without Eyes." Each note carried her journey, from the laughter and mockery in that first hall to the duet that changed her life. She played her heart out, And when the last note faded, silence filled the air, followed by thunderous applause, somewhere far away across the ocean. Victor Lang closed his eyes and whispered, "I hear you, Emma," as if the music had traveled through the air just for him, and in that moment, they were connected again. Two souls who had learned that the truest sound in the world is not found in sight or fame, but in the courage to listen with the heart. Years passed, and the little blind girl who once trembled before a piano became a name whispered with awe in every concert hall around the world. Emma Langley, the heart's pianist, as people now called her, had performed in Paris, Rome, and Tokyo. Her performances were not just concerts. They were experiences. People cried, smiled, and held hands as she played, as if she spoke directly to their souls through sound. But behind every standing ovation, every bouquet of flowers, Emma carried a quiet longing. She missed home, her mother's warm voice, the smell of jasmine tea, and the man who first challenged her to prove that music didn't need eyes. She missed Victor, one cold evening in London. After a concert that left the audience in tears, Emma sat backstage alone, touching the golden metronome he had given her years ago. Its surface was warm, almost alive from her fingers. She whispered, "Mr. Lang, are you listening tonight?" Her manager entered, holding a letter. "Emma, this came for you." "It's from New York." Emma opened it carefully, tracing the embossed letters with her fingers. The words were from the hospital. It said Victor Lang had fallen ill and was asking to see her. Her breath caught. "He's sick?" she whispered. Her manager nodded. "They said it might be serious." That night, Emma didn't sleep. She sat by the window, listening to the city rain tapping against the glass. Every drop sounded like a heartbeat, reminding her of the music they once shared. By morning, she had made her decision. "I'm going home," she said softly. The journey across the ocean was long, but Emma didn't care. Her mother met her at the airport, tears in her eyes. "He's been waiting for you, sweetheart," she said. They went straight to the hospital, and when Emma stepped into Victor's room, she heard the faint hum of machines and the quiet rhythm of breathing. "Mr. Lang," she whispered. Victor's weak voice replied, "Emma, you really came?" She smiled. "Of course I did. You told me once. Music has no borders, remember?" He chuckled weakly. "I did say that." His once proud hands now looked fragile. Resting on the blanket, she sat beside him, holding his hand gently. "I've been playing your songs all over the world," she said softly. "But I think you stopped playing yours." Victor smiled faintly. "Maybe I was waiting for a duet partner." Her eyes welled with tears. "Then let's play right here." Victor blinked. "There's no piano," she smiled. "Who said we need one?" She reached into her bag and took out a small portable keyboard, the same size as the one she had practiced on as a child. She placed it on the table, turned it on, and guided his trembling hands to the keys. "You start, I'll follow," she whispered, echoing his words from years ago. He began to play slowly, uncertainly. His fingers were weaker, but the melody was familiar. Their old duet, the one they played the night the world first listened. When Emma joined in, the sound was soft but full of emotion. Nurses passing by stopped to listen. The music drifted through the hallway like sunlight breaking through clouds. When the song ended, Victor's eyes were wet. He whispered, "You've gone so far, Emma, you don't need me anymore." She shook her head. "No, Victor, I needed you to find my path, but I still need you to remind me where it began." He smiled faintly. "Then remember this. Greatness isn't in how loud the world claps, but how softly your heart listens." She held his hand tighter. "I'll remember," she whispered a few days later. Victor passed away peacefully in his sleep, clutching the same golden metronome he had given her years ago. When Emma received the call, she didn't cry right away. She sat quietly at her piano, pressing her fingers on the keys, letting silence speak for her. At his memorial concert, Emma was asked to perform one last piece. She stepped on stage in a black dress, the hall filled with people from every corner of the world. She placed the metronome on the piano and whispered, "For my teacher." The first note echoed through the hall, soft as a heartbeat. Her music wasn't mournful. It was gratitude turned into melody. Each note told a memory, the laughter, the lessons, the mockery, the friendship, the redemption. By the time the song ended, every person in the audience was standing, tears streaming down their faces. When Emma stood, she bowed deeply and whispered, "Thank you. Victor Lang. And for a brief moment, as the lights dimmed and the applause faded, Emma felt something, a warm presence near the piano, almost like someone whispering, "I'm still listening." She smiled, touching the metronome one last time, and said softly, "Then I'll keep playing." That night, as she walked out into the cold air, the stars above the city seemed to pulse in rhythm, as if the whole universe was keeping time with her heart. The student had become the master, but her music would forever carry the soul of the man who once told her that true art isn't seen. It's felt years rolled on, and Emma's name became legend. Her music was played in classrooms, on television, in hospitals where lonely souls found comfort in her notes. Yet she remained the same girl who once sat quietly with her cane, head tilted, listening to the heartbeat of the piano. After Victor's passing, she felt an emptiness that no applause could fill. Every time she touched the keys, she imagined his voice saying, "Feel," not count, and her heart ached. But she also remembered his last words. Greatness isn't in how loud the world claps, but how softly your heart listens. One evening, years later, Emma returned to her hometown. The old concert hall, the place where it all began, was still standing. Though older, dustier, the lights were dim, the red curtains faded, and yet the air still smelled faintly of polished wood and dreams. Her mother walked beside her slowly. "They want to rename the hall after you," she said. "The Emma Langley Music Academy." Emma smiled softly. "No, Mama, call it something else." Her mother looked surprised. "Something else?" Emma nodded. "Name it after him." That night, when the city's council gathered, Emma stood before them in her simple white dress, cane in hand. "This hall is where I learned what music really is," she said, her voice calm but full of power. "But the one who taught me isn't here to see it. I was once a girl laughed at for being blind, and he was the man who mocked me. But life has strange ways. The man who humiliated me became my greatest teacher and my closest friend. So if this hall will carry a name, let it carry his, the Victor Lang Music Hall." The audience stood and applauded as the council unanimously agreed. A few weeks later, the new name was unveiled. Golden letters shining above the entrance. Emma ran her hand gently across them, smiling through tears. "You're home again, Victor," she whispered. Soon, she founded a new program under the hall's name, the Lang Fellowship. Dedicated to teaching music to blind and disabled children, she spent her days surrounded by laughter and melodies, guiding small hands over piano keys. "Don't be afraid of silence," she would tell her students. "It's where the music hides before it's born." One boy in particular, little Samuel, reminded her of herself. He was quiet, nervous, and blind too. The first day he came, he asked shyly, "Miss Emma, can I really learn even if I can't see the notes?" Emma smiled and placed his fingers on the middle C key. "You don't need to see the notes," she said. "You just need to hear the story they're telling." Months passed, and under Emma's guidance, Samuel blossomed. His playing carried the same raw emotion she once had as a child. One day, during a student recital, he asked her, "Miss Emma, who taught you?" She paused for a moment, smiling wistfully. "Someone who couldn't see me at first," she said softly. But when he finally did, the whole world listened. That night, when the recital ended and everyone left, Emma stayed alone in the hall. She sat at the same grand piano where her journey began. She touched the familiar surface, tracing its smooth curve with her fingers. "You've changed a lot, old friend," she whispered. Then she opened the golden metronome Victor had given her. Still ticking softly after all these years, she began to play. Not for an audience, not for fame, but for him. The melody was gentle, tender, full of love and memory. Every note carried a story. Every pause carried a heartbeat. She imagined Victor sitting beside her, nodding proudly, whispering corrections in his usual calm tone. As the final note faded, she let her hands rest, her heart peaceful. She turned off the lights, leaving the hall in soft darkness. Only the faint ticking of the metronome filled the air, keeping time with her pulse. Outside, the city glowed in golden lights somewhere far away. Her radio played one of her old songs, "For the One Who Saw Without Eyes," and people stopped to listen, not knowing the story behind it, not knowing the tears that shaped every note. Emma smiled as she walked out of the hall, the night breeze cool against her skin. She lifted her face toward the sky and whispered, "You were right, Victor. The heart never forgets its rhythm." In that moment, a soft wind blew through the trees, almost like an unseen applause, and Emma knew, wherever he was still listening. still keeping time with her years later. When Emma herself grew old and her fingers slowed, her students carried her lessons forward. The Lang Fellowship became a global movement, giving instruments and hope to thousands of blind children around the world, and whenever one of them played, people would whisper the same words over and over. She taught them to hear what others only see. Emma's piano remained in the hall long after she was gone, covered in sunlight each morning, and sometimes when the room was quiet, the faint sound of a